Welcome to Season 5 of the Founders Only podcast, where we uncover the pivotal trials and triumphs in the stories of great founders, delivering actionable advice on how to be the leader of the pack. Today, I am so excited to welcome Scott Brickler. Scott is the partner and co-founder of CAD Talk, and he recognized the need for streamlining CAD to ERP integration while working as a manufacturing engineer. He taught himself programming, and he automated tasks and integrated software systems, leading him to the software industry. Now, after contributing to ERP integration projects at Sigma Tech Systems, he co-founded a consulting and software company and later developed CAD Talk, now a global solution for CAD to ERP integration. Scott remains pivotal in his ongoing development and strategic vision, and I'm so excited.
Absolutely, so excited to talk with you, Mia. It's great.
So let's get started with, can you share your journey to becoming the co-founder of CAD Talk? And what was the light bulb moment that you had that sparked the idea?
Oh, absolutely. It's a heck of a story, but so I always wanted to be, I went to school for engineering, and I actually left school after the first year and then actually worked as an electrician for several years, traveling around the country doing work. And then I came back after 2 years, almost to the day. I came back to college, and then I started co-oping or interning at a company. The program I was in, they actually had a co-op program. So every other semester you'd work at a company. And the first semester that I worked at this company, we were I had to basically do this job where we put in bills of material into this ERP system, and I couldn't figure out why we were doing it. It was I was like, wait a minute, there's engineers creating data in a computer system over here, and then they're taking and printing out their drawings, and then somebody's typing that data into another computer system over here. Why can't we get these systems tied together? And so the idea for CAD Talk came in my very first semester as an intern at this company. Yeah. So, and then, but it took me probably 5 or 6 more years to build it, to actually see it come to fruition. But it was actually that very first co-op or that internship. Yeah.
So many times, as I've interviewed other founders on this show, it amazes me how there's a large group of founders who happen upon a solution in the process of meeting the solution themselves. They're in the industry, they observe this problem that needs to be solved, and then they build a solution for it. And those are my favorite stories, honestly. So let's talk about who Scott was before he became an entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about where you're from, what your upbringing was like, and if you have any specific examgrew or experiences that you think really caught or shaped your mindset.
Yeah, sure. Growing up, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my father was an entrepreneur. So he started several businesses. He actually he's very diverse background. So he used to work at the waterworks, and then he started a company doing cars and body shop. He actually painted Pete Rose's car one time, the baseball player, and things like that. And here locally, and then so he started that business. He failed at it later on. The business failed, but he went through that. Then he got into horticulture and started. We grew up on a greenhouse farm. We had 13 greenhouses, and he used to sell plants out of that. It was just all kinds of things like that. They're really interesting. So we had a greenhouse farm in the middle of the city. We lived in the middle, straight Cincinnati proper, not like a suburb in the city, real close to Procter & Gamble when they make the Ivory soap, right, real close to that. And we had a farm, and then we used to rent our greenhouses out. And my dad had this huge cactus collection that he used to have. It was in water plants and things like that. So it was very kind of an entrepreneurial family that way. I have uncles who own apartment buildings and also have businesses. So we start that way. And then basically grew up there all through Cincinnati my whole life. And then I think my last year of I went to I went to the same high school from 7th to 12th grade, but then 12th grade I got in a fight, and then some guys, I got knocked out cold by these guys at the fight. And like my parents were like, "We're done with this. We're going to send you to different schools." So I changed schools like a quarter of the way through my senior year of high school. So we changed
Oh,
schools, and we went, and
wow.
then they actually had this like I kind of wanted to be an engineer, but I wasn't sure. And they had this thing called the first robotics team at the new school. So we actually ended up
Okay.
joining that team, and Procter and Gamble sponsored us. And then we ended up going to, and there was two teams from Cincinnati. One was from both of them was sponsored by Procter and Gamble. One of them was like a smart kids high school across town, and ours was like the inner city school that nobody thought would do anything. And so we ended up doing really
Mhm.
well. We actually ended up getting fifth place nationally for that to the first competition. The first competition is global now. It used to be called U.S. first. Now it's like it's all over the world now. And Dean Kamen, the guy who invented the Segway, he's the one who came up with it and stuff like that. So it was really cool. Like so that kind of gave me the bug of wanting to be an engineer and build things, and it was a really cool. I actually have like an old like VHS tape of me like as a kid working on this thing. It's really neat. So it just shows my age. I was like, this is like back in the '90s. So it was really cool. So I had it converted to digital so I could like use it for the site and stuff. So it's pretty fun. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you come from an entrepreneurial family. What about your
She
mom? What did
actually
your mom do for a
she had
living?
a bunch of different jobs too. But she actually worked at a local like the one I remember the most is that she worked at a like kind of convenience store, but it's actually like a dairy. It's called UDF, United Dairy Farmers. I don't know if they have it. It's more of a Cincinnati thing, but she worked there and she managed the stores and things like that. So she did that growing up. I'm trying to think what else she worked. I know she worked at there was a toy factory here called Kenner that used to make toys, and she worked at the Kenner factory and stuff like that. But then she did medical billing and things like that later in her career. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So you have the management and you have
Yeah.
the entrepreneurial bug. Okay. And so what's your superpower? What is Scott like
I
really,
mean, I
really
just
good at?
learn things very fast. Like that's something. It's probably a superpower as well as a weakness at the same time. It's like I can fully immerse myself in something. If I'm interested in like something, I'll read all the books, I'll listen to all the podcasts, I'll do all that. I'll just consume that data almost with like over a unrelenting focus. I can just stay on that thing for so long, which then, but I also can get like distracted and be focused on this thing and not see the other things going on. So consistency has been something I've been working on in the last few years to try to be more consistent about daily habits, things like that. But the ability to like I remember about 10 years ago, I really wanted to learn digital marketing. And I went super deep on that and figured out and learned a ton. I was able to do a lot of things that a lot of people would take years to figure out. I was able to do pretty quickly. Same thing with programming. I fell in love with programming, taught myself the program. So it's a superpower, but shiny object syndrome is definitely a problem sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. You and I have this in common, Scott. Definitely took me a long time to figure out how to at least
Oh
follow
yeah.
through with ideas. Because so it sounds like you might be a
Yeah.
visionary.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself to be a
Mm-hmm.
visionary? You're a big idea person. You have a lot of ideas. So let me ask you about this as an aside. Do you, when you're just driving down the street, do you notice opportunities
Oh
for
yeah.
business
Yeah.
creation?
It's like, I mean, I used to own an apartment building. It's just like you see kind of like nothing. If you don't see a business of creation, you also see how it works. Like you'll experience something. Like when we buy software, I look at how they do it, how they operate their company, everything. So I remember when I used to be an electrician, you would go into once you're an electrician, you go into buildings and look at how it was wired. Now the same thing happens when I see other businesses operate. I go, oh, this is where their efficiency is. If they just did this, it'd be so much better. They would be able to optimize that. So I think I'm definitely visionary that way, but my background's in operations, like industrial engineer. So the engineer is like we engineer processes. So I tend to see inefficiencies in businesses and how they can be improved probably more than I see new
Mm,
businesses. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
mm. So okay,
yeah,
so that's
yeah.
definitely a superpower. Okay. Okay. So how do you approach within your business? How do you approach building your personal brand
Oh,
while
great
still
question. I
growing your
actually didn't do any of
business?
this for a long, long time, and we started the original company in 2005. So I've been around a long time doing this. I think I started. I'll age myself, but I think I started in my 20s doing as an entrepreneur, and that really wasn't a thing when we started that. I think you just heads down trying to build a company, and then when I realize now, at least the last few years, is that like I think the company and your identity kind of merge. it's like whatever I can do to get this thing off the ground, it's like a child, right? You're just trying to I need to get it walking, and doing all these things. And you start realizing like, I won't have this forever. And what am I going to be able to take with me? Yes, the person I became, obviously I could take with me, which is great. And all the things that I've learned, but like, there's no brand, there's nothing about me out there that tells a story or has anything that gives me any credibility or any kind of, other than I've done that thing, but it's always kind of tied to CAD Talk or tied to that thing. So now we're actually, one of the things we're actually starting a podcast with my brother who works with me, and some more, and we want to necessarily name it CAD Talk. We wanted it to be more about like, our experiences in manufacturing. I mean, there's some CAD Talk things in there, but really get that idea out that like, I'm somebody besides CAD Talk, right? and that idea. And I think that's fairly new concept. And just making time for that, like saying that's good. And it can be synergistic too, because if you're associated with that brand, it helps the brand. So you can justify the time for it because it's going to both grow the business you have, but also give you an asset that you can keep with you.
Great answer. Great answer. I feel as though the personal brand building is really critical for, well, let me rephrase.
Mm-hmm.
People want to buy from people. And if you look at Elon Musk, if you look at Jeff Bezos, if you look at Bill Gates, if you look at, I could come up with Donald Trump even. I mean, you may know their brands. Their brands are household brands, right? But who do you know more? You know them. And if you go look at their following on social media, their following is always going to be bigger than their business following. Even though they have these massive, massive companies, they all have surpassed. And I agree with you totally that, creating or separating yourself and creating a brand around yourself allows you to come up with different ideas and evolve as a business owner and do other things, because people begin to know you, respect you, see you as an intelligent thought leader and entrepreneur, and they want to work with you and they start supporting whatever you've got going on. So I agree with you on that.
I was going to say, Alex Hormozy takes he talks about this, and it's probably the best person I've seen articulate it, is just like the idea that it's just that credibility travels with you. And then and in every venture you go into next, it puts you that further ahead when you start it, which is really cool. Really very, very powerful. Yeah.
Yes. So, what advice do you have for founders who are navigating the complexities of integrating?
Oh, absolutely. That's something we have a lot of expertise in. I mean, everything that we do is integration. That's the entire value proposition of the company. And I would say that the integrations are hard, but it provides, and it's nice because it provides a moat in your company. It's like if you do an integration, but the biggest advice I would say is don't do shallow integrations that just do very basic things. A lot of people are disappointed by that. So I think there's a big rush out there to say we integrate to everything, and then that way somebody can just check that box. But then when they get into the product, they're very disappointed. They're just like, you guys don't really integrate. You just kind of do this little basic thing. And so everything that we do, our philosophy was to make the integration so deep that it was almost seamless. It was like, because the cool opportunity with integration is you can actually borrow credibility from the other application. So if a customer already has something and they're like, well, I have this thing, I really love it. Hopefully they love it. They don't always love it, but they have this thing that they already use. They know it. They're familiar with it, and you can you can integrate to it in such a way they don't even realize that they've transitioned to your thing. Then they associate your thing with their thing, and they're never going to let it go. So if you make that deep, if the integration is deep enough, that kind of it does that for you. It kind of gives you that kind of edge. It's almost like selling through partners. You have somebody introducing you, that other application that you integrate to is kind of introducing you to that customer.
Yes. So basically, you're saying to make integration sticky. Mm-hmm. You want the user to need that integration. And if the integration is too superficial,
it's right. And it's like, and you also kind of want to make it like seamless too. Because one of the things that we'll do is our product will actually sit inside of the system that we integrate to. So they don't really know that they're actually in ours at all. That's that line between the product they use and ours is very, very, it's very veiled. So they don't know which part is us and which part is them, which is good because it just becomes part of their workflow, and they don't disassociate the two of us. They don't say, "Oh, I can use CAD Talk, but not this thing." It's this one thing to them, and so we're able to like take advantage of a product that's much bigger than us by being associated with it. That type of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Do you have a framework for how you approach building these integrations, since it's clear that you understand how to add value with the third party integrations? So have you over time kind of developed a process or system for when you're building a new integration,
Yeah,
how to approach it
absolutely. The biggest
to
thing, I
get
mean, from
started?
like a technology perspective, you want to build a platform to make it easier to do the integration. So that's probably the biggest thing that we do is like we can't create, they're hard to create, so but you see patterns over time of how they're done. And then what you do is you create a framework or a platform that allows you, that you can build on top of, to allow that integration. So that way from a code perspective, it's only the code that's specific to that thing, right? And then you can, a lot of the concepts are kind of repeated. You're just kind of you're leveraging them over and over again. That's probably one of the biggest ways to do it. And then also we call it intelligent integration. We're not only, so you're augmenting with AI and stuff, but we also expand that to the partnerships that we have. You want to have consulting companies that you work with, and vendors and things that you really want to be very intelligently integrated into that whole ecosystem, so you understand how that product is being used and how you're working with it and how customers use that product you're integrating to. So then you can add more value. So like a lot of times, even our sales, we're helping the people sell their product along with ours because we understand how their product's being used. So the more you can kind of like become an extension of that system you're working with, the more leverage you have.
Do you have a favorite company that you've either built an integration for, or that you've just been a part of their ecosystem at some point in your professional experience, where you say, you know what, they really have done a great job with creating for lack of better words, a culture around
Yeah,
their ecosystem?
there's we work a lot with the different ERP vendors and things like that. There's some are really good. They have really good partner programs and things like that. They're really, I think the one that's really interesting to work with is a product called SolidWorks, which is really it's a CAD system that a lot of engineers use, and they just have a really friendly open architecture, as far as like they're just super friendly to partnerships. And not everyone has that, right? Sometimes you have to fight. I mean, there's a good and the bad to that. If they're hard to get partnerships with, once you have them, then you have a competitive moat. But if they're also hard to work with because they're not designed that way. So they're kind of looking at their own stuff, and they're not really they're not partner centric. Whereas like a company like SolidWorks, which was partner centric first, and I think the story was the founder of that company came from a company that was very closed, and that was one of the things. So he kind of followed like Microsoft's model of letting people integrate or build on top of their stuff. And this is like in the mid 90s, and he followed that same model, and it worked. So he was actually able to grow bigger than the original company he came from because of that, having that being able to let people partner with him and build things on top of the systems that he created. He created a platform and then was very partner friendly. And that anybody who does that usually does really well. Yeah. Mm.
Wow. I wonder if this is like actually a concept. Like it sounds almost like open source
Yeah.
partnerships, or open source
Yeah.
third party integrations, or it sounds like it could be
Yeah.
coined as a term. Um, what software, or sorry, not software, what programming languages do you all leverage the most? Because you mentioned that you build
Mm-hmm.
first like a platform, and then kind of build the unique pieces of the integration separately, but you kind of have this initial platform. What languages
Most of
are
ours, because this
those
business, a
built
lot of
in?
the ERPs and such, a lot of our stuff is built in like .NET. So .NET's kind of the architecture we build off of, and the way the program's set up, or the platform set up, is that we have a base level platform, and then each integration is like a plugin into that platform. So then any plugin can integrate to any other plugin. So that allows us a lot of flexibility if people, depending on, so they can have one or many different. The way I kind of explain it is like it's kind of like Zapier, but for very, very niche scenarios. So like, say you go into Zapier, you got like 500 applications you can integrate to. Cat Talk's very similar, but for a very niche market. And the problems are also much more
Got it.
complex. than that. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, got it,
Mhm.
got it, got it. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, how does CAD Talk leverage AI and other tools to extract insights and optimize
Oh, absolutely.
processes
The
for
that's what we
clients?
call the intelligent integration. The You think about a lot of integration is copying data, right? You just have Zapier does this really well. You have like this CRM, this marketing automation system, and you're like copy this customer from here to here. But a lot of systems, like the reason why you're pulling the data is you're wanting to change it, you're wanting to augment it, you're wanting to add something to it. You want to have a. It's almost like you have this idea of a derivative. You're taking the original data and you're deriving something new from it. Well, the intelligent automation with the AI is trying to make predictions about those changes along the way. So if we could pull the data out and then we could say, well, I could see in this data that you're trying to do X and Y, I can augment it and make some decisions for you in the new system that I'm integrating. So an example of that we do is that CAD Talk will automate which traditionally would be like a manufacturing engineer's job. So a manufacturing engineer looks at a design and figures out how he's going to make it. How are we going to make this thing? If I design a table, how do I make the table? We're going to use these machines, things like that. Well, all the data he's looking at is in that it's there, but he has to derive that from that data. If you take, so how can we take AI and then look at the same data set and then actually predict how we're going to make it, how much is going to cost, what materials are we going to use, how much time is it going to take, and so we're augmenting the data along the way of integrating it. Does that make sense? Or yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. So then, let me ask you this question. This sounds a manufacturer engineering job sounds extremely what's the word I'm looking for? Requires a lot of
oh yeah,
expertise and
yeah.
knowledge and skill. So, how do you think, given the fact that you've been able and your business has been able to replace a lot of the work of such a
Mm-hmm.
specified role, how do you see AI as replacing all of us, or
Yeah,
who will be replaced rather? Who will be replaced? What type of
yeah.
roles and tasks do you think will be replaced
Yeah,
before the
it's actually
others?
a lot. It's a lot. The things that people thought were going to be easy to replace were actually very hard, and then the things that we thought were going to be really hard are actually been pretty easy. It's like, I mean, development is one that's actually being majorly disrupted. Like writing code, and and that's I think even like I think about people implementing software. Like, can you imagine having an AI bot that helps you implement as onboarding and things like that? Those are things that are going to happen. Like there's all these different kinds of all these things are going to be augmented. I think of it more like there's going to be it's a tool. Like so, it's not so much a replacement. It's like you're able to leverage the tool to get more out of it any given person. So still, but we're still selling to people, as you mentioned earlier, as people to people. People want to work with people. You're just going to allow. You're just going to be able to do more. What a given person is going to be able to do so much more than they were able to do before. I mean, I think heard a statistic the other day that said I think it was Peter Diamandis was saying that he thinks that this year, maybe the first year, that there's $1 billion 3-person company because they're using so much AI to
Mm.
do the work that there's still people there though. There's still people that have to make strategic decisions, things like that. So I think I always kind of frame it as being a tool, and it's kind of I think it was a great book. Like Kevin Kelly wrote, it was called The Inevitable, and there's like it's inevitable. So it's like really the only thing that you can really do in that situation is to try to teach people to have like a growth mindset and then be able to learn. And if they have a growth mindset and they're able to learn, that skill never gets obsoleted, right? So they can move on because most time technology usually opens up a lot more opportunities. It usually doesn't shut down opportunities. I know with AI, people are very scared about that, but I remember I'm old enough to remember when the internet came out, and there was a very similar fear, with the internet, and like, oh well, how are we going to what about travel agents? And a lot of jobs did get eliminated, but it also opened up in a huge industry. I mean, what we're doing today wouldn't be available without the internet. So I think that's kind of like, I guess I'm hopeful that those things will continue on. But yeah, it's absolutely true. It's like that's we are doing that. It's like what used to be a person doing that role, we're automating it and more. And we hope that a lot of times those manufacturing engineers, that one of the reasons I created this product, I hated doing that job. It was such a boring job, when I did it. So I was like, those guys are doing is they're moving out and they're actually they're actually walking out on the shop floor and looking at the machines and figuring out how to do process flows, things that are more interesting and more human focused, as opposed to like literally just transferring data from one system to the other and they're literally making using their brain 10% of the time and just typing 90% of the time. So it was really like, if we automate that last 10%, they're probably going to be okay at that point. Yeah.
So do you think, I mean, so I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
push the envelope a little bit on this topic, because it sounds like you're saying that no one will be actually replaced, that in fact the AI is a tool and that everyone will be able to leverage this tool and make themselves more efficient, but
I
keep
think
their role. Is that what you're saying? Or do you
Oh,
think
there
that
definitely
some
will be
people will
replacement. I
be
think it's just
replaced?
that I think that because you're going to be able to do the amount of output or the GDP or the amount of things that we can produce, a given human can produce, will go up exponentially with AI, right? That's why they're talking about like the cost of goods and services might actually go down because you actually have deflation because it's so automated. The amount of output a given person can do, but there's still output. There's still people using the tool for the output. So it'll absolutely replace things, and but it'll also create opportunities. So just like so it's the people that are
Yes.
able to learn and adjust and use the tools will prosper, and those who don't will have displacement. There's absolutely, if anybody says that's not going to happen, it's not true. It's going to happen. It's just you have to figure out like that's. I remember when I was young, I always thought like I love technology, so I remember saying we just need to adopt technology as fast as possible. And if you're like a guy who loves technology and you adopted things fast, that's great for you. But like but that you start realizing like the world doesn't work like that, and so there's a lot of things. Technology is probably moving faster than we realize. It's just that we kind of slow it down. The humans actually slow it down because we don't adjust fast enough, and that's actually a good thing. It allows us to make those decisions and kind of deal with the fact that things are changing. I remember when the internet came out, like the laws weren't coming out fast enough to deal with it. So there was like it was like the Wild
Mm-hmm.
West. It was people
Yeah.
just doing crazy stuff, and we're gonna have exactly the same thing happen here as well. So.
Yes. I had a conversation about this with some other people in the SaaS, B2B SaaS space, actually. And I was talking to them
Oh yeah,
about, I'm a big
me
movie
too.
buff. So I was talking to them about a few, well, so then maybe you'll
Mm-hmm.
have seen these movies. So I was talking to them
Oh
about
yeah.
Terminator 2, and about how, there, whether or not that reality, or that will become our reality in some way, even if it's not as negative or as, doomed, doom
Doomsday, I
what
think
is
it
it,
was, or
doom,
Judgment. Yeah.
yeah, doomsday, as a movie, but maybe close to it. And then I was also talking about the movie
Oh, I have. Yeah.
2012. Have
Oh
you
yeah,
seen
with
that?
Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was talking, no,
Rainy Quaid or Dennis
oh,
Quaid.
what is his name?
Oh no.
No, no, no.
Oh,
John
okay. Okay.
Cusack.
John.
John Cusack. So in the movie, at the end of the movie, or basically one of the, I don't want to give away, but at the end of the movie, everybody was trying to get on I think it was just one, maybe it was more than, anyway, it was one or
Oh yeah.
two ships. So think
Yeah, I remember
Noah,
this. Yeah. Yeah.
okay? Yeah. So they built an ark, and there was a lottery system, and there was a opportunity for people
Mm,
to pay to get on the boat, and then there was also this, the lottery was limited to people who had certain
okay. Yeah.
abilities, who had contributed to society in certain ways, the same way that
Oh yeah.
Noah said 2 by 2, right? He took the bare minimum, two of each animal, brought them onto the ark so that humanity could continue. It's the same concept that they had in 2012. But my point is that I was saying the people that they made sure were on the boat were people who were
Mm,
creators and scientists who
okay.
had made discoveries, or who had made major impacts on, um, society in various industries and subjects. And so I want to go back to the question again about AI, because I was saying I think that people who will be replaced are those who cannot add value,
Mm.
who cannot take the response, people who do not create
Hmm.
and or who do not add something new to the conversation, whatever that conversation is. I feel like those are the people who are going to be replaced. And so yes, it's going to make people more efficient, and I feel that the more repetitive your role is, where it is comprised of any kind of repeating tasks, the more that that is a part of a major part of your role, the more quickly I think you will be replaced by AI. And if you are in a role also, if your role is where you're leveraging an existing body of knowledge,
Hmm. Yes.
then also I think you will be replaced. Again, it's about adding to the conversation, adding value, being able to interpret and make the responses that you're getting from the large language model, whatever it is, to be able to interpret it and augment it to add more value to whatever that conversation is, for whatever it is.
It is. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's probably one of the things I think is really interesting. You start hearing about that maybe the first time, and if you ever watch your movie buff, you ever watch the original Time Machine? And it talks
No.
about the obviously the original Time Machine talks about like he goes so far in the future, he creates this. He actually experiences where they basically have become so complacent because life has become so easy. And I mean, I won't give it away if you're going to change, but it's a great lesson about that. There was like the Eloy and the Marlocks and this. So the Eloy are like, they're just living in bliss all the time, right? But there's a dark side of that too. That's I don't want to give it away, but the idea we're kind of like that's probably a time in history that's actually that could occur. Is right now is like that's why they're talking about things like universal basic income and is that the robotics and AI could make human life so easy that we don't really have to work anymore. We just take an income and we just live and prosper. But that actually concerns me. That concerns me worse than like the Terminator. It concerns me that like maybe I just because I'm an entrepreneur, I love to create things. It's like what is it to be human once you remove the work of building something or creating something? What makes you human? Like, why is it any fun anymore? What's that? But maybe that's just me being an entrepreneur. But I know a lot of friends who would love to retire and just sit on the beach.
Yeah.
I'm not that way, so I don't know how that would be. So maybe
I,
that's
I will I will
what's
take
that.
that.
You would
I
take
will
that, okay? So there's nothing wrong with it. No, don't get me wrong. My wife would love that too. She always says she's like, anytime you want to let me retire, I'm okay. And I'm like, all right. So, but yeah, I think so. That's probably going to be. I mean, based on what we're seeing and like what I'm seeing, just from it being a technology guy, it's just that's a real possibility in our lifetime. I mean, that could happen, and and is it a good thing or a bad thing? If you watch the Time Machine, it's not a good thing. So it's because you just don't like we're crafted by hardship, we're crafted by struggle, and if you remove that, we become kind of weak, right? We don't survive as well. So yeah, so I would definitely recommend that movie. You probably like it's old though, it's an old one, it's old but good.
original
Yeah,
time machine. It's
original
in my
Time.
queue.
Yeah, the
Okay.
2002 version is pretty good too, but the original's the best. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, there's a two. Okay.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. But it's called the original time machine,
Well,
right?
it's called H.G. Wells' Time Machine. So, and then that's like from the 50s. And then there's another version that came out in 2002 that's pretty good. So
Okay.
either one would be fine. Either one would be fine. I
Okay.
like
Okay.
the original better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hop to another topic now. So,
Sure.
as a leader, what habits or practices do you incorporate into your routine to
Mhm.
ensure that you're always striving to be better? So, what are some of the habits and practices that you have in your day to day that you're very proud of?
Oh yeah. I think that the, I mean, the continuous improvement thing is like part of my DNA. I think that's just the way that we look at it. And it's like, so I'm always more interested in like how do we improve the thing than actually to solve the thing in the moment. I have to be reminded that sometimes, like we have a problem with the customer, what is that, and I'm like, well, how can we keep this from happening again? That's just more
Yeah.
my, but like from a day to day standpoint, one of the things I've been doing, like I said earlier about doubling down on consistency, I have this like I have a morning routine that I follow, and I never been able to hold it for very long. And now I think I actually had a record. I think you might saw it on Facebook. 250 days of a morning
Yeah.
routine, and that involves like meditation and rucking and some physical activity, and it's just and getting enough sleep and things like that. And as I get older, like the sleep is huge. The sleep is absolutely game changer. I can't. I think if you get enough sleep and it
Yes.
just it sets everything up for the day. I mean, I think about how many times I've gotten upset with somebody or something like that, and then the next day I've slept and I'm like, I don't know why I was even angry. I mean, it just doesn't make any like who was that person?
Yes.
I don't know who that was. You know,
Exactly.
so yeah, I think they're the fundamentals. I think that I got really interested in like I want to say like 10 years ago in like nootropics and like smart drug type stuff and like learning about that and like all this really wild stuff about like things that you can do to enhance your brain and make it work better, like nicotine and there's a thing called modafinil, and this is all really fascinating. And then I realized I looked at all that stuff. I thought it was really cool, but then I realized like it's really the basics. If you just get enough sleep, you meditate, like you can simulate almost everything that these kind of smart drugs will do. None of them are legal. They're not illegal, obviously, but there's like things that you can do, and most of that stuff you can without any possibility of the downsides. So and it's all within us. You don't have to have some external thing. And now I kind of look at it like just do the fundamentals, trying to find a hack all the time, and make it faster. So I would say that the biggest productivity hack is just good sleep, meditation, thought, mindfulness about what you're doing. Try to schedule your day. That's a game changer. I think blocking time, scheduling your day. Try not to multitask. Like try to do the one thing at a time is what we're built as humans to do. And if you just scheduled your day, I think it'd become 30% more productive. I think for most people, it's just because they're constantly reacting to things. They're reacting to their email. They're reacting to instant messages. Or like, it's just all that stuff is just, it's a reactionary culture, the way things are today. And just eliminating that would give you huge productivity, huge, it'd be a huge process improvement. So, yeah.
So if consistency was difficult for you before,
Mm-hmm.
which I totally am in the same boat often.
Yeah.
What was the game changer? Was it putting it on a schedule, or what caused you to be able to accomplish the 250 days? What was different this time?
I think it's first of all, it's identity. I mean, I think that they stopped saying I wasn't good at it was one thing, right? I mean, it's because you kind of almost have an association with it, like, oh, I'm really good at like binging on things and figuring things out, and that's who I am. I don't, but like, cause I just hate it because I hate the monotony. So the terms that you use and things like that, and then you realize like, and then I think I actually did a frame shift, and I was like, wait a minute, Scott, like everything that you've built or that you've seen built that's amazing was done with consistent effort over a long period of time. So you've been consistent. I mean, you couldn't grow a business without being consistent. You couldn't do these. It takes you can't write you can't write a software package in a weekend. You can't lose 30 pounds in a weekend. You can't do any of these things like in a binge schedule. So you're lying to yourself. You're not like that. You've been consistent. You just aren't acknowledging it. So and then you say, okay, well, I am very consistent. I'm just going to be more mindful of it. And then working and then just kind of developing the habit and then realizing it's a good thing, not something that you want to avoid, but something you want to hold on to, and find the joy in it. It's probably the biggest thing. And also it's like I'm getting my late 40s now, and I'm like, well, Scott, when are you going to do this? When are you going to improve this thing? So you have to. So you kind of like also like you start seeing like you've been saying this for a long time that you did better at this, but like when are you going to do it? Type thing. So a
Yes.
little bit of time urgency as well. So yeah.
I love that. Get rid of the negative self talk and the
Mm.
limiting belief and claiming the identity that isn't really the truth.
Right.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Mhm.
it. I love it. So, what are some strategies for encouraging your employees to embrace continuous improvement in their daily work?
Like it's actually it's actually our first value. We call it relentless reinvention. It's like it's part of the company values, and it's like, and there's actually kind of it's built into some of the practices that we do. I mean, obviously we score the meetings. We have weekly syncs. We score them. We want to know what all the one-on-ones. That's like the major topic. What can we be doing better? It's like that's the core kind of tenet of that. And we even have like books that we read as a company during every quarter to like learn something new, and then we do also do quarterly rocks where we make improvements. So it's like it's a very natural thing because the culture comes a lot of times from the founders. So since I do that anyway, it just kind of trickles down because they just get reminded of it all the time because it's just like my default mode of like that's hey, how do we make that better? That doesn't work quite right. And then like I said earlier, to me, that's actually more interesting than actually the work is the figuring out how to make it better. And that just kind of permeates the culture that way. And so it's like, that's just a question we're always asking.
So, what is one book or podcast or any resource that you love that has profoundly impacted your perspective and mindset as a founder?
Oh, there's so many. I was trying to figure this out earlier about which one, because I mean, probably the most recent one was the Buy Back Your Time has been really good. That was a really great one. But I think back for my earliest part of my career, I think that probably the one that spanned my career the most is a book called The Goal.
Mm.
And it's actually about a lot of people in my field have read it. It's like required reading for the type of engineer that I am, but it's basically the theory of constraints and looking at systems and processes and optimizing them. And it's a really cool book. It's actually tells a story through a fable, and not really a fable. It's actually like it's a true story, but how this guy had a Boy Scout troop, and he was trying to figure out how to get all the Boy Scouts to march together. And he figured out that one of the Boy Scouts was like a little slower. He had too much stuff in his pack, and he figured out like how to distribute the weight to the other Boy Scouts. And then so you're always looking at a process and figuring out where this bottleneck is. You improve that process, and then the bottleneck moves. The constraint moves. And the theory of constraints, a great book, like about anything about process improvement or looking at how things work, or how do you, I mean, we think about designing products. You're trying to build a product, look at the constraints in the system. And if you build a product against eliminating that constraint, you've got a market every time. So.
Who was that book by? I've heard of that
Oh,
book.
Elijah Goldratt, I believe. I think it's his
Yes,
name. Yeah,
yes.
it's a great book. Great book.
Dan
Yeah.
recommended that book before on
Yeah.
stage. I've definitely heard of that book.
Yeah.
What is your biggest regret?
Ooh, I haven't thought about that one. I don't know if it's really a regret. Like, I think that, like I have a, like my daughter, with like, I wish I could have spent, like, my daughter and her mom didn't make it. So like we was we got very early on. So I don't think I've actually got to spend, a lot of time with like living with my daughter. So I think that so like I wish I could have spent more, like I could have been with her every day, but I took it as a blessing too. Sometimes things happen for you, not to you, right? So, um, my daughter, like I started the company, and then I met her mom, and then like I want to say 4 or 5 months later, we were pregnant with her. So it was very close. It was very fast. Like all this stuff happened, and it's like what going on, and I was very focused on building the business and doing things like that. And I think about if she would have been there every day, I may have taken it for granted. And so when everything kind of like didn't work out, and then I didn't get to see her every day, that loss hit me so hard. Like it was just like I won't be able to be with her every day and be her dad. And so it made me structure my life so much more disciplined. Like it's non-negotiable. When I have a daughter, I don't work. It's all about her. It's all about focus and make, because I realize that like 80%, I think I read an article, 80% of the time you ever spend with your kids is before they're 18 years old. Like that's just that's the math, right? And then if you only see them on the weekends, like, so I figured it out one time. It's like 100 days a year I get to see her, and I see her a lot. So you realize that, and then you're like, wow, okay, how do you optimize that? Yeah, that's been something since the very beginning. Like, even though I had this business and we grew and everything like that, I would never compromise on that. So regret would be, I guess it could be regret. Like, I wish I had spent every day with her, but I don't know that I would have done it. You don't get the split test life, right? So, so you don't know if it was a blessing or not. But that's the only thing I can think of when you say that. So,
Yeah,
everything else kind of shapes the way you are, right? So you don't know if you want to, yeah.
it's a trick question, Scott. So it's a trick question because some people say, there are no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
There's no regrets. Things happen because they're supposed to happen, and it's just about your reaction to it and how you evolve and grow to respond to the changes that happen that may be outside of your control.
Yeah, yeah, and I 100% believe that. I think you kind of, life rolls it, and you have to rolls it your way, and you have to adjust and figure out how to make the best of it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I feel like just life is a lot of times just somebody that machine that spits the baseball out at you.
Oh, I think what they call that. I think it's pitching, I think it's just a pitching machine. I think that it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it's called. That's sometimes how life feels. Like you
Mm-hmm.
just keep trying to hit the ball And
Yeah.
sometimes you hit it out the park, and sometimes you don't hit it at all. And sometimes you just swing around. If you're like me, you don't hit it at all. You just swing your whole body around. Yeah, but life just be life, and sometimes. So
That's a
where
great
can
analogy.
people find you? That's a
That's
good
a great
analogy.
analogy. I like that because it's like you have to react to the pitch and try to make the
Yeah,
best of it. That's a really good. That's
yeah,
actually good. It's like we always use that analogy of like what's the difference between golf and baseball? Baseball, the ball's moving, so you have to react and make the best out of it. In golf, it's the ball staying there. You just have to be consistent with your body. A completely different skill set, even though it's
yes,
both you're hitting a ball both times. And
yeah,
so, but
yeah.
yeah, I think baseball is definitely more like life. Yeah,
Yeah, more
yeah.
like life, and then even more like life when you're dealing with the actual human that's pitching you the ball, because they every little inch they move or however they change their pitch can that really mimics how life is, in my opinion. But
Oh yeah.
um, so where can people find you on social?
I think probably I'm on Instagram. I think it's sbrickler1 on Instagram. I mean, I think there's only one other person in the world with the same name as me, and usually they're not on social, so it's actually really easy to find me. So it's pretty cool. And then so yeah, so it's LinkedIn's. I think I don't do anything on Twitter. LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook are the ones I'm always on. So you always get your
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.